Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is Comedic Pedro, 1976. Now, the cover picture for the video is of the actors from the the TV show Good Times, which was a show that broadcast on television from 1974 to 1979. It was a spin-off from the show Maude, which was a spin-off from All in the Family. This was the first African-American two-parent family sitcom. There were 6 seasons, 133 episodes. The characters included Esther Roll, who played the mother, the wife and mother, Florida Evans. First name Florida, interesting. And then her husband was John Amos, who played the character James Evans. So this was the Evans family, and they had three kids. Jimmy Walker, the oldest, they called him TJ. He was 17 years old at the start of the show, and then they had this Bernadette Stannis, known as Thelma, who was 16-year-old daughter, and then Ralph Carter, who played the son Michael, who was 11 years old. And this was this fan. And then there were a lot of characters. Another one was Janet Dubois. Interesting. I wonder if she's related to W.E.B. Du Bois, who played Willona Woods, a neighbor, who was kind of outgoing and talkative. Now this the show was about this Evans family, and they were a poor family in Chicago in the projects, having hard times. And the son Jimmy Walker, who played TJ, was reportedly an immediate hit with the audience. And he was called a breakout character. He had this expression, "Dynamite," which became very, very popular, I think, nationally. Everyone, and that quote, "Dynamite," was, according to TV Land, one of the 100 greatest TV quotes. He was kind of a buffoon. Now, I watched this show. It was funny. It was good, and kind of heartwarming. This family trying to make a go of it in life, and hard times, but as it says, good times, because they were keeping their spirits up. They were working. The father was struggling to support his family. He had some low-paying jobs, and the mother, she was a good person. And apparently, it was family life. An African-American family back in the 1970s. And apparently, the son, their son, who became popular, they had an immediate conflict in the show, because this son became this expression, "Dynamite," became so popular that they started putting that into a lot of the shows, and there was conflict because they thought, oh, this is trivial. They wanted it to be a serious, a comedy, but also, family life, and this ended up being conflict over that. And he became the famous character, kind of upstaged to his parents, who were fine actors. I thought it was a good show. I really enjoyed it. It was well done. Good times. Okay, now the T-shirt I'm wearing is from Cleveland hockey team. This actually, the shirt came out years later. This was printed based on a Cleveland hockey team in the 1970s, the Cleveland Barons in the NHL. They didn't last very long. Now, the thing is, this time in 1976, I continued to be a big Cleveland sports fan. The Indians, Browns, and Cavs were my top teams. Baseball, football, and basketball. But I've always supported all the other teams as well. Like, for example, they had the Cleveland Nets hockey team, who had Bjorn Borg, who was, I think, #1 tennis player in the world, played at the Coliseum. And then there was the indoor soccer team, the Cleveland Force and the Cleveland Crunch. The Force were, I was supported them. I think I'd listened to games on the radio. And the Force, they never won a title, but they were strong contenders. And then the Crunch won 3 championships. Really something. And my friend Brent Lessheim, he was at a game. I think they played at Cleveland State. And the goalie, Otto Orff, Brent was telling me, he told the goalie, go back, so he was giving him some instructions, try to help him during the game. And they had Otto Orff bobblehead dolls at one time. Anyway, the thing is, I was visiting Cleveland one year, and right during the visit, I think in April, in the early 90s, the Crunch had won the championship. So I was very, very happy. I went out and got a T-shirt to because that's what I always wanted to do. Have Cleveland win a championship and get a T-shirt, wear it. Look at this. feel proud, even though I didn't know much about the team. They won 3 titles. And then, funny thing, in the early 2000s, I was in the Philippines during that time, or a 20-year period, and there was a typhoon, no school that day. So I turned on the TV. We had cable, and there was ESPN, and there was a women's basketball game being played. The New York Liberty against the Cleveland Rockers. I thought, oh my God, I didn't even know Cleveland had this women's team. And I watched the game and Cleveland won. Oh, I was so excited. It was wonderful. Wow. Cleveland Rockers. So I became a big supporter of the Rockers. Rockers were a strong contender. They never, they won the East Final, or the East title. They never got to the WNBA Finals. And I remember one year I was supporting that. I thought, okay, we hope they could win a championship. That's what I wanted. One year I was flying home for our family reunion in August, and they were in the playoffs, but I think they eventually lost. Disappointed. And it's funny. One year we were visiting in December. Went to a Cleveland Cavs game, NBA game at I think it was called Gund Arena then downtown. And during the game, I went to the Cavs shop, and I was looking for Rockers stuff, different things, because I was interested in actually getting some WNBA cards, or just see what they had. So I didn't see anything. I asked the gal, I said, where's your Rocker stuff? And she goes, oh, the team disbanded. So there was no more. Oh, and I felt sad. Didn't even know. And I was out of touch. Didn't know the team had folded. That's too bad. I was kind of disappointed. People are kind of mad at, fans tend to be mad at the owners, against the owners of these pro teams, because they're very wealthy and so forth. And in Cleveland, Dan Gilbert gets a lot of criticism. My only problem with Dan Gilbert is he folded the Rockers. I think they were losing money, but still, I thought I really loved to have. I support the WNBA, and so anyway, I supported all these different teams, other teams. Found out they have a blind baseball team. I think called what do they call it? Can't remember not right now. Anyway, so now that brings us back to this T-shirt. I was a Cleveland hockey fan. Back then in the 70s, the Cleveland Barons, I really got into Cleveland sports history, learned about how the Cleveland Barons, Gene Keychek wrote a wonderful history of Cleveland, 2 books on Cleveland hockey, one on the Barons called Forgotten Glory. I love that. Oh, wow, I was reading in Manila, I was excited. They won a lot of championships in the AHL, the American Hockey League, the Calder Cups back in especially the 40s and 50s. And by the time I was a fan in the early 70s, the Barons were still around. I think when I was first a fan late in 72, I think that was their last season. And then they had Nick Maletti was the big mover and shaker in Cleveland sports, and he bought the Indians, and he started the Cavs, and he started another hockey team, the Crusaders. And the World Hockey Association. They played at the arena. So I was a Crusaders fan, listening to games on the radio, and Jerry Cheevers, those guys. I'm not sure if I ever went to a Cleveland hockey game, maybe a Barons game at the old arena. And anyway, so now this shirt is about the Barons, the original Barons folded, and then they had the Crusaders. They folded. Then we got an NHL team, another Barons team. Kind of cool. It's got the map of Ohio, the outline of Ohio, state of Ohio, on this. Kind of a cool logo. And they only lasted a couple years. And then over the years they had there was the Lumberjacks, and then now we have the Monsters. Originally the Lake Erie Monsters, now the Cleveland Monsters. And I think we went to a Lumberjacks game. I got a Jock Calendar bobblehead doll, and then we also went to a Barons game. They had a Barons AHL team that also, I don't know what happened, but now the Monsters won the title in 2016. So I'm not following. Can't even tell you a single player that when they won, the Cavs were down 3-1 in the NBA Finals. So anyway, I continued to be a real big Cleveland sports fan in 1976, the year I turned 16, and I was a hockey fan as well. And that time it was the Crusaders. Okay, now the events of 1976. January 12th, Agatha Christie died at age 85 in Oxfordshire, United Kingdom, England. And she's a famous author of these whodunits. On the 18th of January, diplomatic relations were established between Pakistan and Bangladesh. Now, these were formerly part of British India, and then actually they were one country at one time, the two Muslim parts. Pakistan, East and West Pakistan. East Pakistan broke away, became independent, and there was a war, and India supported East Pakistan, which became Bangladesh. So there were hard feelings, although apparently after 5 years they were able to have diplomatic relations, sort of overcome that. The same day, the Super Bowl 10 or X between the Pittsburgh Steelers won. Yeah, they won the 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. They won 21-17 against the Dallas Cowboys in Miami, Florida. Now, on the 19th of January, Jimmy Carter won the Iowa Democratic Caucus. 76 was a presidential election year, and Carter was a dark horse. Came out, this was the beginning of his road to the White House. In March 22nd, the Star Wars began filming in Tunisia. Interesting, North Africa. You know, those desert scenes on the planet of Tatooine, in the Sahara Desert, Tunisia, North Africa. April 1, Apple Computer Company was formed by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Boy, that was the beginning of something big. On the 5th of April, Howard Hughes died at age 70. This guy had been a big aviator. He'd inherited a lot of money, and he made movies. And he kind of he got into aviation. I think he had an airline and so forth. He became kind of a crazy guy. He had too many concussions. Very interesting life. You know, he was terrified of germs. One point he was like always washing his hands. Anyway, he was a very interesting fellow. On the 10th of April, Frampton Comes Alive was the best album of the year. I guess the top-selling album. And that was actually the first album I bought. I remember we were, it might have been that year or the next year, my family went to Uncle Bill's shortly before the school year. And I decided I want to be a teenager. And so, because I hadn't really been, I was a Cleveland sports fan. I was pretty immature, not into the thing, didn't know anything about rock and roll. And that was a big thing, when you're a teenager. And I turned 16, this year. And I was just, into, I was studying and so forth, but not into, like what other kids were doing. Certainly not in terms of music. I remember so I bought this, or we were in line, and I got this album, and my sister Patricia said, "Oh, Peter's buying an album," because it was because she knew I'd been really childish, but I was finally thought I want to be a teenager, be a part of what other kids were doing, which was a big thing is music. Especially I'm sure it's the same thing now, that music is a big part of being a teenager. On the 23rd of April, Jethro Tull came out with an album, Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die. On June 1st, the United Kingdom and Iceland ended the Cod War. So they're fighting over fishing rights. Very interesting. On the 17th of the month, let's say that's June, the NBA and ABA merged. The ABA, the American Basketball Association, was a rival league, and they came up with a three-point play, and they had slam dunks and the three-point line and this colorful basketball. So these different, they merged. Finally, they decided, so they had four teams, I believe, joined the NBA from the ABA. The rest folded. The Kentucky Colonels folded, but I think the New Jersey Nets and San Antonio Spurs and Philadelphia Sixers all joined. On the 26th of the month, the CN Tower was built in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the tallest building in the world. Ooh, pretty good. And I think since then there have been other. I think now it's somewhere over in the Middle East, in the Arabian Peninsula. I think in Bahrain or Qatar, something like that. Okay, on the 29th of the month, the Seychelles became independent of Great Britain. The Seychelles Islands, a small archipelago in the Indian Ocean. I met a gal from the Seychelles in Guam, Micronesia. July 4th was the U.S. bicentennial, 200 years since July 4th, 1976. So this was a big celebration. A lot of patriotism. I think they tried to clean up the Statue of Liberty for that. The same day, the Entebbe raid was held. There was an Israeli commandos rescued 103 hostages. There was, I think it was in an airplane in Uganda at the airport in Palestine. There were Palestinian hijackers who took these hostages. I think mostly Israeli. Anyway, the Israelis they flew down to from Israel to East Africa and rescued these. It was a big, very dramatic thing. On the 15th of July, Jimmy Carter was nominated for president for the Democratic Party. Yeah, pretty early. Now it's much later. So he was going to be the nominee. On the 18th of the month, Nadia Comaneci won the first of 4 perfect scorers in gymnastics at the Summer Olympics in Montreal. Yeah, she was kind of mechanical. I remember Olga Korbut from maybe, I think it was 72, was beloved. This Nadia Comaneci was tremendous. But she'd win, it was kind of unusual. They would never give anybody, but I think, was the first one. But she seemed kind of hard, so it wasn't that appealing. Okay, on the 30th of the month, Bruce Jenner won gold medal in the men's decathlon in the Olympics. Of course, he eventually now he's a woman. I think he's Caitlyn Jenner now. So anyway, on August 1st, the Seattle Seahawks played their first game in the NFL. Must have been a preseason game, the beginning of the Seattle Seahawks. On the 5th of August, the great clock at Westminster, Big Ben stopped running for 9 months. He was having problems, so Big Ben they finally got it fixed. So people were happy about that, getting that. I guess it just needed some repairs. On the 19th of August, Gerald Ford was nominated by the Republicans as the nominee for president. He'd been appointed by President Nixon as vice president and then assumed the presidency when Nixon resigned. In September, moving forward, let's see. On September 6th, Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin reunited for the first time in 20 years, and that was the first and only time they were on. Apparently, they became estranged or whatever, but they used to be together in a lot of movies. And then for 20 years, finally they got back together just for that one night on stage. On the 13th of the month, The Muppet Show had its first broadcast, became popular with children. The 24th, Patricia Hearst was sentenced to 7 years in prison for her role in the 1974 bank robbery. This was really something. This poor woman, she only served 22 months, was pardoned by U.S. President Jimmy Carter. Yeah, she'd been kidnapped and sort of brainwashed, but then the public, wasn't very sympathetic to her, because she really became an enthusiastic believer. And actually, when she got arrested, she was still thinking. And then later, she decided, as she got away from these people, she thought, "What? That's crazy," and she realized. She decided this was wrong. And anyway, this was a tough thing she went through. I thought the public was too hard on her. On October 19th, the chimpanzee was declared an endangered species. Very endearing animal. They're worried they might all die out. And then November 2nd, in the U.S. presidential election, Jimmy Carter won and defeated Gerald Ford, so Carter became the new president. On the 29th of the month, November, Reggie Jackson, who'd been a star with the Oakland A's, signed a big, at the time, $3 million 5-year contract to play for the New York Yankees in Major League Baseball. On December 8th, Hotel California song was released by the Eagles, became this popular song. Now in our family, 1976, both my parents turned 52. Yeah, they were still, busy people, very active, and they still had this tremendous pain because of the death of their daughter 5 years before. But they were busy, and I believe in 76, my father achieved this victory in the Episcopal Church court, which allowed women to become ministers. Before, they were not allowed to become ministers in the Episcopal Church. And then he got involved in the Peter Beebe case. There was a trial in the church, Peter Beebe at Oberlin, and so this was a wonderful thing that he did. And my parents were good people, working hard. My dad was very stoic. Yeah, and I know they were still hurting, for the rest of their lives. But this had been 5 years, but still they were really hurting because of the death of their daughter Pamela. But good people, busy. My dad was working. They were both. That's what they did. They were, and that's fine. I mean, that's better than being idle. Yeah, even though some people said I'd been idle, but anyway, I just like to read books a lot. That's what I enjoy. Now, my brother Mark turned 24. He graduated from Oberlin College. He was on the 5-year plan. Yeah, he took an extra year. He did graduate, and we went to the graduation, and we had a little party at our Aunt Helen Lacey, my dad's mother's sister, who lived in Oberlin, in the backyard, and there was a cake. Remember, there was a cake. It was like a big bird cake, as I recall. Anyway, so Mark graduated, and then he moved to Boston, and he went to working on a master's degree in religion. And he stayed in Boston for the next 15, something like 15 years. So Boston became his home. So he was somewhat troubled, but, well, young man. A lot of people are troubled. But anyway, he did finish, yeah, and he was moving on with his life. And of course, Pamela, my older sister, she'd been gone for 5 years and died on April 11, 1971. But she was still our sister, almost 2 months shy of her 17th birthday. So what do you know? When people die, you don't know what they're doing. Yeah. Anyway, she'd been, and you wonder if they'd been reincarnated or not. But anyway, we just don't know. That's the mystery of death. We have to focus on this world and the people who are in it. You can pray for them. I don't know how much she was troubled by all the the grieving that went on for so long over her death, but again, you don't know. My sister Patricia, she turned 19 in November. She graduated from Rocky River High School in June, and then started at Dartmouth College in the fall, where she got her degree. And I think she was the first group of Dartmouth had been a men's college, and then they were admitting women for the first time. And Patty spent a year at Brown. She spent a year in France, I think in Europe. Yeah, she had this debate. She had some unhappy. Well, a lot of young people are unhappy. She had some unhappiness at Dartmouth and was interested in Brown, and then she was kind of torn between. She spent some time at Brown, and she thought, should I stay there or go back? And then I think her father said, oh, you should continue, you should finish at Dartmouth. So, and Patty did, and I think she kind of regretted that. But anyway, so she was at Dartmouth College, and I think getting a French degree, and music was still very important to her. Now, I turned 16 in May, and I finished grade 10 at the Rocky River High School, and then started grade 11. So I was moving through my high school years, and like I said, I was my life at that time was I was a good student in school, kind of shy among other, kind of intimidated by other kids who were more outgoing. I had my friends, and we played a lot of sports when we during the summer and on weekends. We played baseball, basketball, and football. Baseball at Rocky River Park, and football at Elmwood Park. Basketball, maybe up the high school, wherever we could. And Boy Scouts continued to be a real big thing for me. And that summer, I'm sure I went to Beaumont Scout Camp for the week, and then one of the two, either Tinnerman or Philmont. So that was, and then, I was rooting for the Cleveland sports teams. And I think I had my paper route was done by this time. Started grade 11. Oh, yeah, in the fall, that would have meant I actually... I was pretty. I was depressed, shy, good student, and I thought, I need to grow up. I got a job. Yeah, my friend Joe Schaefer. He said, hey Pete. He was working as a busboy at this. I think it was called the Westwood Restaurant at Westgate Shopping Mall. So I got this job. I started working. And it was pretty grim. I come home from school and I used to take the bus up to Westgate. I was a dishwasher. Did that for some time, and I come home and do my homework kind of late at night. So anyway, that's what I was doing. So that's it. I didn't. This title of this video is Comedic Pedro. I didn't have such a great sense of humor at that time. But anyway, I guess that's about wraps things up. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.